I'll just welcome you here. Thanks for coming here. Glad to have you at Camp Life. Glad to have the two of you together, sharing a little bit of both of your story, a little bit of the combined story, and then a little bit of what it actually takes to make a partnership work, whether it's at home or at work. So first off, just give me a snippet of your background. How did Bill develop?
It's a really long answer for this one. It took a long time, right? Obviously I was in the Marine Corps way back in the day. Came out of there not really knowing where my life was going to lead me. And so I thought I was going to be a police officer. I went and got a criminal justice undergrad. Thought this is exactly where I want to be. Then the opportunity came to go to law school. I said, well, I'll try this. I'll go in the FBI. I'll do something a little bit more formal. And by my very first course in the first year was property law. And I loved it. Most of them hate it, right? That's like the one that every lawyer, I hate property law, but I loved it. I realized I have a much different mentality for this kind of thing. And so going through law school, I ended up kind of being in taxes and estate planning and property law, all things I loved, kind of led me into a completely different path. And then I went into banking. While I was actually worked for VU for a while, doing fundraising, work with the large gifts and the trust and all that. Then I went into banking, working with trust work there and as in investments. But then something clicked with me of just realizing, why am I doing this? I love what I do. I think I'm very good at what I do. But what's my purpose? Where am I going with my life? And what am I going to get out of this? And so an opportunity came up to go into not-for-profits. And I went into that one, worked in development stabilities for quite a while. Loved that. Just a beautiful population, wonderful people working there as well as the people you get to serve. And then an opportunity came up now where I am here at a regional care group. And just had everything I wanted. I'm working with children, Head Start programs, individuals with mental illness. We work with some people with developmental disabilities. We work with family services. It's a really great plethora of services that I get to be involved in. So kind of wound my way through here, but that's kind of how I landed here, just from pure service.
Ultimately following your expertise and then matching it now with your heart.
Try to match those two up is very difficult. I remember even way back when I started at the bank and trust work, and I had a law degree at the time, and I was like, well, what are you doing here? Why are you in banking and not practicing law? And I never really thought I was going to practice law for full time. That was never my plan, because you can do almost anything in the world you want with it. It's the ultimate liberal arts degree, if you will. And so I could use different parts of it. If I'm working with trusts and if I'm working with employment law, all these different areas here. And even now, with that degree in particular and that kind of experience, regulations and be able to deep dive into different things and get involved there. I was just working on a big employment issue this morning, last night, and just working through all those things. And then, of course, I eventually went on to get an MBAs because I didn't have any kind of business background. So I got an MBA. And then I got my vanity degree just a couple of years ago, and I got a doctorate in healthcare administration because I didn't have that as a background. So just pulling all
literally
that in
like
there.
5-tool athlete kind of thing of, that'll help me. And ultimately it sounds like you wanted to be the most rounded athlete, not I wanted to be an MBA or I wanted to be an attorney or I wanted to be in finance.
Right.
I wanted to be a well-rounded leader.
And that's kind of where it all came down to is, the fact that I could understand more different things. And when I saw some of my own personal gaps, to say, let me fill these gaps. Let me figure out how I can do a better job at what I do. And hopefully that improves the community and the people I serve ultimately.
That's an awesome story. And how about you? What began the creation of the leadership version that you are today?
As Bill was talking to, there's so much value alignment that we have. And so my journey doesn't fare off of that too much, just different subject matter. And so for me, I got a degree and then I was overseas and I didn't expect to be in a leadership role. But when the area I was living in, they needed leaders and you had to have a bachelor's degree. So they actually kind of brought me in, and it was in a daycare field, and we were doing daycare for all the military families over there. And so I ended up kind of being in this big leadership role of a daycare. And by the way, I did have a 7-month-old, so I had a baby, but I didn't grow up babysitting. So that was the only baby I knew.
You were literally learning on the fly in both cases.
Yeah. And so when we moved back to the States, I also got to spend some time with some developmental disabilities and social services. And after a few years, I said, I'm making all these business decisions. I need some formal business training. So I went to Purdue and got my MBA also. And then after doing some of that nonprofit work, and I was pretty good at it, I said, well, I want to go into for-profit. Could I be good at that? And again, I was lucky. I had these for-profit organizations that were ran by really great CEOs who believed in doing the right thing. So even though it was for-profit and we were driving margins and doing all these great aggressive growth goals, we did the right thing. And so I did some pediatric healthcare. I did some family caregiving. I even got to do some operations in a multi-state exposure for a while.
That's cool.
But I didn't have my close community connection. So for me, I knew career-wise, could I be a CEO? Could I do this? Maybe I'll look into that. I'd really love to be in my community. I lived in Northwest Indiana, but I was traveling to Georgia and Boston and throughout Indiana, right? And I didn't have these close relationships here. And then this opportunity opened at CoAction. And I'm like, maybe they're a small nonprofit. I could jump in. Okay, so they're not small. They're very complicated, but the board was great, and they gave me a shot at that. So I've been there just shy of 4 years.
That's
really
awesome.
Cool stuff.
Sounds like a very similar story in terms of I'm going to accumulate experience and knowledge and insight, and then I'd like to add to that because that might open me up to these opportunities.
Yeah.
And also, I'm just developing the athlete. You're constantly developing yourself.
Sometimes you have a coach along the way. So Bill calls it his vanity degree, but here's really what happened. Several years ago, he's like, hey, Jen, what if we get PhDs? This is the conversation.
Okay.
And so he finds...
It's great to have the inside scoop.
Yeah. So then he finds some really good universities that had some online PhD programs. So I wanted to go on a track of strategic leadership. He went into his track. But mine was more vigorous. It was longer. I didn't have a law degree to help me with some of my credits. So I was able to do a 2-year program to get a doctoral certificate, not my PhD, but a doctoral certificate a couple years into that work. So he's a big influence. So sometimes that coach, right, is also there kind of influencing you. So because of his influence, I jumped on that bandwagon because why not? If he was giving up Saturdays to write papers and read a bunch of stuff, I could do it too.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Well, and if you're going to spend your Saturdays together, well, you might as well spend them
100%.
doing something that actually grows both of you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Where did you learn? It's awesome to have that self-development emphasis in your life. Where did you learn that? Mom, dad, coaches, teachers, just
so
all of a sudden came to you? There's
so many influences in your life, but this is where we differ in one pretty large respect. I'm very much a lone wolf in a lot of things, and I do so well just focusing myself. And she does really well with coaching. I'll let her speak for herself. But I have a lot of great influences. My parents, obviously, my family, my wife, 100%. And I can pinpoint several people throughout my career in almost every different place I was who said, man, that's a person I want to emulate. That's such a great person. I didn't necessarily use them as a great coach or as a mentor, but I've certainly grabbed some of their best
you
aspects.
Took a nugget, ingested it, and said, okay, I'm going to use that to fortify me in this particular area, and then I'm going to go learn something from everybody else.
Right. So I've always grabbed that. And then, when we go to conferences, for example, which we just did last week, we're going to do another one this week. I'll just grab onto things there too. Like I always say, if you go to any session, if I get 1 or 2 nuggets, that's what I'm looking for, then you really had a really successful opportunity there. And so I'm very much a self-learner. I have a tendency to hold things in. I don't always talk things out. That's probably one of our frustration areas. And she's like, you should do this. And it's like, that's not for me. Right.
Yeah.
But for her, she enjoys that. So
you're referencing executive coaching, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's one of my big things I'm a big fan of. Yeah.
And tell me who taught you to take the path that you're on or to really just think about self-development all the time?
These are great reflective questions. And, I'm nominated this year for the Northwest Indiana Influential Women in Nonprofit Leadership. And they ask a lot of these soul searching questions like, how do you
Why are you here?
Yeah. I was the youngest of, I say 5, but really it's a brother and 3 cousins. But we grew up together in so many ways. But I was the youngest of 5, and it was merciless love. This was a great group of 5, but I was very competitive with
Okay.
trying to get whatever I was trying to get. So I think there's a lot of influence from just how I was raised with that 5, my core 5. And one in particular, my cousin, she was just this great achiever, great athlete, great student, great everything. And it wasn't until probably for me later in high school even that I was like, you know what, why don't I get straight A's? You know, Deanna gets straight A's. Why can't I get straight A's, right? Or why can't I be great at the things that I do? Why do I have to just be okay at it? And it was just a switch for me. So all of a sudden I just put more effort into things. And so I know she had a big influence on making that change. But then I had this mindset of, well, I want to be great at what I'm going to do. And my mother also instilled that from my whole upbringing. You know, if you don't do a job well, don't do it at all.
Yeah.
And so really pushed that on me. So then, you know, any job that I had, I always wanted to do great work at that. And I allowed myself to learn from others. And so for me, you know, everybody has their own wisdom. And if you're willing to share with me some of that wisdom, I don't have to live it. I can actually learn from you and skip some steps, please. So that was really cool. And again, just these, you know, I had one leader who really united a multi-state organization by sharing personal stories. Now we call them blogs, but back in the day, they weren't blogs, right? You know, I had someone else who was all about, when you meet people or when you're interviewing people, make them as comfortable as you can, because that's when you learn the truth.
Yeah.
And so I had many interviews. Oh, they were fun. People were laughing. We were having a great time. Wouldn't hire them in the world for the stuff that they shared, right? So I've learned these micro lessons along the way. But then really it was when I met Bill and just started talking with Bill, it just kept like, oh, this is weird. Like, oh, I think like that too. Or then like he would share something and I'm like, oh, that's really profound. Oh, that's a cool way to think about that. And just like such a big influence. So as crazy as that seems, because I don't know if it's healthy to be as, we talk about that all the time. Like, is it healthy that we like to spend all of our time together and
let me tell you, as
influence each other?
As a guy that's part of a couple that like we spend every waking moment possible together and are emphatically in love with it, it's okay. At least from my standpoint, it's good.
That's good because I'm obsessed with her.
Yeah.
And, you know, it'd be a problem otherwise.
And not to get off on a tangent, but like I think that it's a great thing. Some people are like, well, you know, you guys are sort of nuts about each other, and it almost seems odd. And I said, well, why don't we just make that common?
Yeah.
You know, like, why isn't it just odd if you aren't crazy about each other? You chose to spend your whole entire life with this person, and if there's anything you're ever going to invest in, one single thing, like it's the most important thing you could possibly invest your time and energy into. So if you're not crazy about each other, why aren't you looking across the table and saying, hey, but could we get that back?
Yeah.
Because we had it at one point in time. And I don't really think it's ever lost if people get back to it, but you just got to invest.
Nurture. Yeah.
I'll stay on that topic, though it's a little bit out of order, but I'll stay on that topic. What makes two strong, different, but similar in mindset leaders coexist as a relationship? How do you have two drivers, so to speak, in one house?
I take the back seat.
Okay.
I think that's the most important rule. I can't think of anything else.
He knows he's very great. So he does allow me to take to have strong opinions about how we spend our time or whatever. But actually it's because you go with the flow. You're so laid back. You're so calm. Your demeanor is insane. And I can't replicate it. But it's that you make it easy. You make everything easy
too. So, she talks about that. I always talk about having a calming force. That's something I talk to my own staff about all the time. I do orientations. It's always like bring a calming force to everything. And if you bring that, you have much better chance of surviving and achieving what you want to. And I think I bring that, to work, but also in our own relationship. And we're lucky because a lot of our mindsets are also how you treat other people is very similar in business as well as in your own personal life. You treat them with respect. You treat them as though they're the most important person in the room with you right now, and at all times. So I think we're really lucky that way, that we both will come kind of the same way, that we won't cut each other down. We won't go in the negative route. We stay positive, and always assume that positive intent.
You do some of this so naturally. Sorry, Chris, I'm being cut you off. Like being in the moment is really important. So you have to be in the moment. You have to compartmentalize. We could work all hours of every day, and we do work a lot. Our schedule pretty much is we work every Sunday night, and we work through the end of the day Friday. We try to check out Friday evenings, all day Saturdays. But it's quite often, even last night, like many nights, hey, I've got a few projects to do. How about you? Yep, I'm working on something. And so then we've got our spot in our living room.
You're together, but you're working.
Yeah.
And then we went to bed, and she's sleeping, and I'm working on my laptop till almost 1:30 last night. So
sometimes that happens.
You just got to get things done. But we're lucky because we both live that same life. And so, it's easy. We don't get that like, hey, wait a minute, you're not spending enough time with me. We can compartmentalize our time to say, let's both spend this time together working, and then we're going to spend this time us. That's it, nothing else. I think that's really important. And we're lucky too with like all the events we go to. It makes sense for both of us to go there. We love going there. We love being with each other more. So that's number one. If it was just her, just me, I think we'd both be like, I'm not so sure about all these events.
Yeah.
But we can both go. It fits our roles and responsibilities, and we enjoy our time together, and then spending time with other people together. That really makes a huge difference for us.
I just, it's almost like the Where's Waldo thing. I'll get on social media. I'm like, oh my God, one or both of them are just about everywhere.
Yeah.
We try to stay involved.
We have, we talked about this recently too, like our energy matches. We have really high thresholds though for busy days. So both of us have no problem having busy lifestyles. That would not work. I don't think you could have a great partnership if that wasn't the case. I mean, we both like going on the fly. We both like variety. We have so many similarities and things that we jive to. We're not homebodies.
Yeah.
We've tried to even have our kids kind of leave that homebody lifestyle and try to just live life with us. But teen boys didn't always want to do that. So sometimes they got left at home, and we went out for the day and did stuff,
Whichever ones want to have fun.
Yeah.
Even talk about we'll just pick up and go. And when we're at a conference last week, and I found tickets. I'm on VetTix, and you can get tickets for. So there's a conference or a concert in about an hour and a half. You want to go? And she's like, yeah. It was about an hour to get there. I'm like, let's just go. We're just going to do it. So we're big on just picking up and going and see what life brings you. Which we really enjoy. It's really nice.
Yeah,
that's great philosophy. What did you pull from in your upbringing and those that taught you leadership, and also what you cross-collaborate on? What's most important to you in the organization that you lead?
If I had to think about something that's most important to me within an organization, it's kindness, it's calmness, it's making sure that we're focused on the individual, and especially when we're in a service organizations. We're not about profits. It's nice to have some positive revenues. It really matters in our world. But at the end of the day, we're dealing in people and outcomes and impact much more than money and profit. And so that means that focus on the individual. It's being kind and making sure that they're getting the services they need, because the community has a lot of needs.
Yeah.
And making sure that we know that's where our focus is always going to be. It's going to be on people and treating them with absolute, the highest levels of kindness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How about you? If you had to say, through all that upbringing and all those mentorship or leadership examples, what's important to you that sort of exudes throughout the organization?
Yeah, in my tenure there, we've done a lot of change. We've changed the name, the mission, the values. And I think the values are probably the bigger thing that we really brought to life. They're not words, they're small sentences that describe the behavior and what we want from each other. One of those is that we're committed to helping everyone succeed. And I think that's really important because for me, there's no way I would be here if people weren't committed on my success.
Yeah.
I have had fantastic leaders. And and not easy conversations. They're fantastic leaders because they're willing to have the candid, hard conversations with me.
Yep.
Who, would tell me, you can't do that again. And
Yeah.
let me tell you why. And, as you're growing into a leadership, you don't have the wisdom baked in, right?
Yeah.
So you need,
no one does.
You're right. And so
Yeah.
you need people invested in you and committed to helping you succeed. So for me, when we embed that in the organization, that's key. And that helps, we do so much work. We're helping 30,000 people, who are in crisis, basically, right?
Yeah.
And so you might have a peer giving information out, and then information changes all the time. And now they're not giving the right information out. It's outdated.
Yeah.
We're committed to helping everyone succeed, and people have to be empowered to be like, hey, Bill, I know your intent was probably to help them out, but you kind of gave them some outdated information. And next time you got to make sure you say this, but those micro interactions lead to a whole culture org change. And they go from small, hey, I saw this in a moment, to yeah, man, when your behavior shows up like this, people kind of want to not be around you. Yeah. So there's all these things. So for me, I think if you've got a culture where people are committed to helping each other succeed, your agency is going to do great things towards its mission. So I think thank you for going first. So I had time to think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. but I think we're similar. I know I say the word kindness, but I don't say it flippantly in the sense that it's just be nice to everyone. It's about doing the right thing. It's about caring about people. It's about having a purpose to what you're doing, treating people with that respect and dignity they deserve, making sure, like she said, kindness means letting people know what's happening, if they're doing something right or doing something wrong. Being kind enough to say, hey, look, this is an issue, this is a problem. And I think there's a big difference there. And I've been through a lot of organizations with peer persons who report to me, as well as leaders I've had who just didn't follow that path. And they weren't effective. And, I know one organization, I followed someone else, and they're like, that person screamed at people all the time. And the culture was just absolutely in the dumps. And it was just amazing to see that. And so I think kindness does bring out a good culture. There's obviously a lot more behind it, but I think to me, that's where it starts.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little softer than she is, though. So
that's good. You got to balance each other out. What is it that you're looking for in a leader? Somebody comes in and just says, hey, I might not have all the experience you need, but you've got this position open, or you want to develop a role. What do I need to demonstrate to you to be great in your company?
I feel like you're already going to answer that, because
I
you already know what.
Yeah.
I know your answer. I think we're going to have the same answer here.
Should we write it down?
Should we
compare it?
Well, we always, and I'm
You
trying
get
to
a
remember
bonus if
I
it's
got
right.
the phrase.
Yeah.
You hire for attitude and you train for skill.
Yeah.
And that's the philosophy we both embedded.
We've always followed that. And obviously there might be some minimal skills that someone has to have. But at the end of the day, someone who comes in with a better attitude, the kindness, the care, the culture, the purpose, whatever, is going to do much better than your absolute, perfectionist who has the highest level of degrees if they can't be kind to other people. So we follow that rule to a T. That's how we're always looking at persons.
But it's initiative, and I know you use that too. So, when I joined CoAction, I had a different executive team than I have now. I have one person who's been legacy, who's fantastic, and she holds a C-suite position also. But the remaining 5 people, I hired on. And so over the years, it was natural attrition, but you kind of make that obvious of saying, hey, this is where we need to go. These are the skills that are going to take us there. Do you want to learn them?
Yeah.
And a lot of people will say, yeah, no, thank you. And other people, your gritty people, are going to say, absolutely. What kind of investment, what kind of commitment in me will help me get there? So, when I meet a new leader today and just kind of considering where they're at, it is that, did you think 3 steps ahead? What kind of initiative do you have? Right? You might be wrong. You might be thinking 3 steps ahead and you got it wrong, but I don't care if you got it wrong.
You are thinking 3 steps ahead.
We can coach you on what to be thinking about because you don't know yet. Right. Yeah. But that ability to be able to think about how things impact others, it's innate for me, but it's not always innate for, kind of budding leaders, right? Or people who want to get into leadership. You've got to think much more about what's going to happen to other people and how are they going to feel?
Yeah.
And the world is all about feelings. You can do many things with feelings, right?
Yeah. I will say, just to kind of elaborate there a little bit, that same philosophy goes, I teach systems thinking, right? The idea they have all these feedback loops, they can be negative, they can be positive. And recognizing that if you change a simple form over here, like, wait a minute, who gets that form? And how are they going to take that one? Is that form built the way it's supposed to be so they can enter it and look at it easily to enter it into another system?
Yeah.
And you recognize that even the smallest, simplest thing could have this ripple effect that can just absolutely aggravate a lot more people. You're right. You thought you just fixed this little problem here because someone didn't like the form.
Yeah.
But now you actually just made it so much worse and so much extra work for people down the road. So it is thinking, multiple steps ahead, figure out how it's going to come back, what needs to be done. And most importantly is who to pull in before you make that decision. And if you're thinking ahead, you know exactly, wait a minute, that person, this person needs to be involved here too. Because it's way too easy for us to make our decisions in a vacuum. So I think that's incredibly important.
Yeah.
I grew up around traders in Chicago and other exchanges, and they naturally are very, very good at making very quick, very aware decisions based on lots of different data inputs. But their essential skill is just the ability to process all that down and make a decision right now. And I've learned through the years, pretty difficultly, to say, okay, that is a skill set, but it doesn't necessarily make you great at thinking of all the variables associated with it. What often can be intellectually the best decision right now at this particular moment is not when you figure feelings and relationships and interpretations and communication. And you think about, okay, well, I'm just telling them, hey, Bill, do this and Jen, do this.
Right.
And I'm sending it across. As a very logic-minded thinker, I'm like, okay, I told them each what to do and we're good. And then you learn, oh, well, what you told them each to do torqued her off for this reason, and he didn't even understand that he was supposed to do something out of it. So he misunderstood it. She misunderstood it. He's unsure and she's mad.
Right.
And you're like, but I said 7. And you're like, no, it's not that easy. It's just really not.
Yeah. And it's hard. I'm very much on the logic side too. You do my Myers-Briggs test. I'm the ISTJ, and you might be opposite, almost all 4. And it's really funny but it comes very true when you're very logical thinking. It doesn't mean that other people are illogical. It just means you just have a different way that you're going to approach that. And it's like, well, that just seems much more black and white. And so I've had to teach myself. That's where systems thinking, I think, actually helps me a lot.
Okay.
Because it makes me.
So there's help. There's hope for me.
Yeah, right. Because
I've just been trying to beat the rock softer for like my whole life.
Right.
But
because even those
I
steps
need a
are logical,
strategy.
trying to think ahead in the systems thinking, like how's this going to affect what feedback loops you're going to get, but also helps you realize that there is not that vacuum. And sometimes logic is just like, it's obviously correct. And I'm pretty sure I'm correct pretty much all the time.
He's not.
No, I'm not.
I like to think that I am.
Right.
I know I'm not, but
Not with the feelings.
I look at things just like math. Somebody else say, should we do, red or blue? And I'm like, okay, well, why should we do this? Oh, well, this is, here's a reason, here's a reason, here's a reason. Okay, well, what's their value? Well, it's probably a 5 out of 10 and 2 and a 4. Okay, so you got 11. What's the reason for doing this? Well, that's a 7, that's a 4, that's a 9. Okay, just do the math.
Right.
We can be done with the discussion. That is a skill. That's not necessarily a skill everybody really wants around all the time.
Right.
But it's also not a skill that leads to deep understanding and embedded thinking and principle, all that kind of stuff. So I've, my biggest learn after all these years is just be the person that can readily make a decision very quickly and think about all the math involved. But, you can't be the day-to-day empathy, interaction, relationship person if you're really thinking about, could you just give me numbers and I'll make a math decision.
But my spreadsheet actually had me marry her. So
yeah, it did.
I every decision you make can be done in a spreadsheet, I've always said. And so, I ran the numbers, I did all the right appropriate check boxes, and it said it leaned towards her. So it worked out really well. So
he's absolutely not telling real news, is he?
No. He is not.
I made the decision to marry my wife in 2.5 seconds, from when I saw her. She was introduced to me at the Chicago Board of Trade, and just literally like, hey, we're going to introduce the new woman coming into the office. Her name's Natalie. And like I shook her hands, waited for her to walk around the office and connect with another guy that she was going to be working with the office. And I ran over there and I said, did you see her? He's like, who, the new girl? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, I saw her. She's cute. I'm like, cute. I'm going to marry that girl. And so I'm a little bit more impetuous by nature. I started this whole thing just on a lark of, hey, I'm going to push this idea out to a couple other people and see if they'll run with it. They didn't want to run with it. And I'm like, we're going to have to do this. And my wife was like, what? Why are we going to, what's the we part of we're going to have to do this? And I was like, come on, it'll work. It'll be good. Let's just do it. And I think, again, that's a skill set to be able to just say, let's just get up and go. Yeah. But it's got a lot of ramifications.
Yeah. Well, you have to be able to unite people.
Yeah.
So that's the other piece. I think when you take these CEO roles, you have to know a little bit about everything. You might be great at a few things based on the journey you've had, but you're not great at everything. And you've got to have all of these people around you that cover those gaps.
Yeah.
So, I was talking with someone this morning on the team and he's like, hey, I hired this guy. He's great. He's better than me. I'm like, but he should be because you have a lot more to do. Right?
Yeah.
This guy does this and you do all of these things. And it's the same thing. I think for a lot of the stuff I do is I surround myself with great people, like people that I'm like, I think you're much better than that, or I want to look up to, or I can role model from this. You can teach me. I love hiring people that I'm like, teach me, make me better. But I think we have this, humble nature about us both. That's just like, I could do more. I could give more. I could be smarter, sharper. I mean, neither of us are satisfied, right? Like we always want like more for ourselves. I don't mean to speak for you, but we've had conversations about it, but you always kind of want more. So you put great people around you. Yeah. That's why I put you.
It's kind of funny talking about great people. Like, my team now, a lot of my teams in the past were much smaller. And so we had a lot of gaps. Like we didn't have an IT person. We didn't have a full-time HR person when I first got there. And so a lot of it comes out of the CEO.
Yeah.
Because you can't keep pushing to other people. But then I get to this organization. It's a very large organization. We're 100 million revenue, lots going on. So I have, MDs and PhDs and master's degrees. Every single person on the senior team, I have 11 persons. Every single one of them have an advanced degree and are absolute experts in their field. And so here I am, like, what do I do? Right? What's my role now? Because like when I used to do all these extra things in my past, like I felt like I was this expert and I could, even IT, like I'm going to set up Microsoft 365 myself. And I get to this place, and they're like, well, that's not the right way of doing it. Let me show you how to do it. And I'm like, now I'm hands off. And that's really hard when you're much more active like we both are, because you want to get involved in every little thing. And that's probably sometimes I push her a little bit like, you had to be involved in that. Like, let your team do. You have a fantastic team. She's like, I know, but we both love being involved. And I know my team sometimes is like, you don't have to be here for this meeting. Like, we got this. I'm like, I thought you guys wanted me, but
my team's like that pretty much all the time, every day. I really stay super heavily involved. I think they're constantly, as is my wife, encouraging me to, hey, you don't need to be paying attention to every single thing. Mine's, I think, just from a competitive nature, and I always view it as I'm competing with myself, with no one else.
Right.
But I know what we're capable of doing. Mm-hmm. I know what I'm capable of doing. So if I go into this event and that person speaking, like, it isn't rocket science how to take a picture of somebody if you go up close enough to them and hold still enough and take multiple shots so you actually get it. So I'm a little bit more, I would say, lot more of a stickler about, okay, but we have certain standards, and if we all do this, got to be able to deliver that standard.
Right.
But I think that, again, is where I've learned to just say, I'm a better owner than I am as a leader. And I think I could put the right environment together for the right people to do that with each other. And then all I really do is teach the standard. Like, I know what we can go get in that particular situation. I know the right way to handle a partner. I know the, right thing we need to do for the community, or how to balance the story we're doing. But I definitely am not the best implementer of all that stuff. And not the best, as you guys both serve, enabler of even those leadership people. I'm a great sounding board, but, ideally the board's a block or two away.
Right.
I think we take the results personally.
Yeah.
This is your business. So obviously you've got that. But, the organizations I've worked for, they weren't mine. They, different entities, but I still took the results personally.
Yeah.
So it didn't matter if it was just a goal of a regional area I was responsible for, or a whole division, or now a whole agency. When things don't meet that standard that you just mentioned, it's like, what did I do? What should I have done? I take it very personally that there was a misjudgment on my part for either involvement or predicting something or whatever that looks like. And it's interesting because the successes aren't mine. I love it when things go well. We had a fantastic event earlier this year. We're so excited to do some more next year. And everybody came together, but it was so many things that had to come together, for that to work, and very planned. And so, the team, as you guys are talking about, but the team is saying, hey, we know we got this right when you stop showing up to meetings.
Yeah.
When you stop showing up to planning meetings, we know that we got this right. And it's not about the trust, it's about the details, and it's about the outcome. Just, it's at a really high standard, and we all have our own different gifts, right? And so I think that's where that comes from, the balance too of leaders. My gosh, that's hard. That's hard. There's a book that I follow, I've read, I like it. I've told people, there's a couple, but I've told people to get it, but it's what got you here won't get you there.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like all those leadership skills that got you here, or all the whatever skills they were, now you got to switch it to get here. So this is my first time being a CEO. And I knew that coming into this, there's going to be a lot of lessons learned. It's my first time, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be things where I'm dialing up too much, not dialing in enough. And so I think that's still the balance, because we're doing so many things still for the first time. CoAction's growing. And so there's just things we're doing for the first time. So I want to be involved in the first time.
Yeah.
And then see how that plays out before knowing, hey, the next time, I know we got this. We have the systems in place. We got this. But it's still busy. It's busy.
I think it's interesting. She mentions, just taking things personal, because we've always taken ownership in what we do.
Yeah.
And we have this conversation a lot where it's difficult when other people don't. And so we have to figure that out, especially if they're reporting to you and they just like, well, I just do my job. And they might do it great. But sometimes without that extra layer of ownership, it drives us crazy. And so we have to remind each other sometimes, like, why is this person not willing to do X, Y, and Z? And we have to tell each other, like, you recognize they're not like us.
Yeah,
that's
a job.
We are a little bit different.
Yeah.
We just have a different attitude towards that. Not everyone's going to take it the way we are. It's not that we're better, but we just have a different attitude and way that we bring it. And maybe that's why we are CEOs now.
Yep.
And some others who just say, no, I want to get my job done, which is fine. Again, that's what we ask of you. But that's hard when you don't take ownership. And I think that's another real critical skill in any of these roles. And we wear our logos all the time. We're out and about. We represent ourselves because it matters. And we do take it personal. And when something doesn't go the right way, when my board says, hey, why is this number right here?
Yeah.
I'm like, there's a dagger in my heart. And
yeah.
even though I know I didn't do anything wrong, it's just like, but it could be totally external influences.
Yeah.
But it hurts because that's not where I want it to be. And when it's not where I want it to be, it's very personal. So it matters.
I think it's part of who you are, but it's also part of who you develop to be, to say, okay, well, naturally, I want nothing but the best. Like if we could deliver the best, I want it to be perfect all the time. I am interested in your thoughts as being both a very logic-driven person and also a very, obviously through your service especially, and thank you also, but through that service, you're a person that almost goes into it expecting things will be logical, or your natural presumption is, why don't we just do it based on logic and then responsibility? And we really got a responsibility to do our best job, not just a job. How do you balance those when you go into the world? Because those were sort of two primal things for me. I grew up among traders, and if they don't like what you're doing, they'll just tell you. And if they said you're doing a poor job, that might be the nicest thing they said to you in a year.
Yes.
And so, you learn that's not the greatest form of communication, but you do begin with a premise where this isn't right or this isn't logical. And those two should just not happen very much. But they happen a lot.
Right. And it's so hard going from banking, which for somewhere we are, they're in it for a different reason, or for the profit, but also just you get a different mindset of person there. They're really focused on, there's a lot more logical in what you're doing.
They have to
You know the
balance, or
numbers.
you don't get to go home.
Yeah. And so everyone gets that. But, when I first got into not-for-profit work, and for-purpose work, as I like to call it, but this concept of people aren't there for the logic side. They're there for the feelings. They're there for the purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And so they just bring a completely different mindset. They're not ever going to focus on the money. And so you can never focus on the bottom line, even if it's just like, I just need to break even, or I need to make $1 so we can keep our facilities up. That's not even on the radar for them. And if you even bring it up, it's like, that's all you care about is money. And it's like, no, I care about the service. That's what we're here for. But if I don't have money, I don't have service, right? Yeah. And so, I've had to learn over the years, and sometimes I don't do great at it, that I have to bring the soft side into almost everything I do. And then sometimes you got persons who are like, oh, you're so soft, or, we want to terminate this person. I'm like, no, it's not the right person or right reason for all these reasons. And so I get this concept. Now people think I'm kind of like really warm and fuzzy and soft, and I think I might be sometimes, but it's purposeful. It's like, because if you want to build the right organization, you got to treat people the right way in every interaction. So it's like, if we need to do A, and I know we need to do A, but they're probably over on B, and I know I get them to A, I can't just say we're going to do A. Yeah. It's you got to help them get there. And there's, things like Cotter's change management. You could follow the whole process. And there's all these ways you can help them get there. And sometimes they have no idea that's what you're doing, but again, it's methodical, and there is a lot of logic in, I understand that I can't just do it. So how do I use my logic to help them get to where I know we need to get to? So they recognize and understand that. So I think I can still use the logic, but I recognize that it means I have to use a lot of feelings and other ways of getting there, which is very difficult for me sometimes.
Your primal thought is, okay, we're talking about it to 1, and you're saying, but it's a 7. And rather than just saying, but it's a 7, that's how out of whack we are with where we got to get to be. You're saying, well, let me help them understand that it really could be a 2, then a 3, then a 4, and eventually get to a 7, where your primal thing is, no, we're 6. We're 6 out of whack here.
Right.
Like, let's just get to the number.
It's not a group that just responds that way. Not in social services. Nearly, there's some in there, but most everyone came up through, social worker backgrounds, and they're just a different focus than what a business background does. Yeah. They just have a different mindset. They know why they're doing what they're doing. They're there for the people, the purpose, and the mission, which is all great. But sometimes, you need that logic. So it's whirlwind sometimes. She's very natural at that. She can get them there. I'm not. So I have to bring more of the logic to figure out how to do it. But she just knows how to say it. And they're like, oh, yeah, of course it's that way. I'm like, how did you do that? I have no idea. It's amazing.
We talk about, man, if we ran our own company someday. Yeah. You're so brilliant at business. And I like people. I genuinely like people. So I enjoy engaging and unifying and helping people grow and reach potential. Like, I think that's one of my values. I love watching people grow and do even more. So we were always like, he's like, you manage all the people. And I was like, and you manage all the business. Yeah. But we really love what we do.
You both serve needs in areas and with people that are in potentially challenging situations, their health, mental, physical, situational. How do you maintain so much positivity through all of the challenges that faces now, and whether it's funding or the people you're serving or the organizations that you depend on? How do you keep all that positive in a pretty tough environment sometimes?
That is, I back in the day was another organization I was really struggling. That's why I got pulled in, and we had to do a lot of really, really difficult things. And as new things came to me, like, I must have had probably, they had lawsuits involved. They had Medicaid coming in. They had just all these different organizations coming in that I didn't even know it before I got in this role. And I remember the board asked me the exact same question, like, how are you so positive? Like, you come in front of us and you're telling us, like, hey, look who knocked on the door. The Department of Labor came in and says they want to do a full audit and they're going to fine you $200,000. And it was hard to say. I said, well, in one sense, that's my job. My job is to be positive, right? Yeah. And I'm naturally positive. I naturally believe in what's good's going to happen in the world. But also, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And so I said, I just cry in my car. But no, But sometimes you take it home, and she sees it when I'm, she knows it. If I answer the phone, I say hello, and she says, "Oh my gosh, everything okay?"
Yeah.
I'm like, I thought I put a great face on that hello.
Yeah.
And she knows immediately. He's like, you're not happy today. I don't think everyone else around me recognizes that she does.
Yeah.
And sometimes, I need my reset time, right? A little bit just quiet, just let me deal with it. That goes back to the difference of like her mentorships and all that. And I'm like, let me just sit down and really pause and
Process
think
this.
here. So I think it's just recognizing, it's not because we're doing things wrong, that we're trying to stay positive. And at the end of the day, we're focused on that mission. And if we focus on that mission, I think there's always a lot of reason to be positive. Because you think about the families that you serve and the individuals that have changed their lives simply by having the services we do, there's so many more positives than there are the negatives.
Yeah.
And I think that's I can always focus on that. I know that we've saved lives. I know that we've gotten people out of poverty. I know we've gotten kids into school and they're farther ahead than they ever could have been. That's all great things. And that's what we want. So there's always going to be setbacks, and we'll work through them.
Yeah.
How do you do the same in a different mindset, different organization?
Yeah. So I really try to also embed critical thinking for everybody around voting season, around news articles. I talk about it. I do kind of a monthly blog. We call it What's Happening, but I always start with kind of my blog of what I've experienced in the last 4 weeks kind of thing, and bring that to life with either a value or an experience. And so, sometimes it requires extra communication. A lot of things are coming out from the federal government right now, right? Nothing is set in stone.
Yeah.
I'm texting a congressman on, some of the outreach just this week to try to get some things changed in the bill, right? Efforts are happening all over the place. Things aren't final until they're final. And so just constantly reminding people, this is what's fact and this is what's not.
Yep.
This is what's pending. This is what's not. And a lot of things coming out, they're taking things away. And of course, people are naturally going to go back to, we're taking things away. But they're also increasing in some other areas that will benefit us too. We build housing and we do tax credit properties, and there's investment from the federal government to make that grow. That's really important for affordable housing. So there's some things that are happening, and just getting people, to go back to what's your news source? What is it actually saying?
Yeah.
Pay attention to the mays and coulds, because people swindle you. They get you emotionally charged. So as you read, you skip over those words, and then it fuels whatever that messaging is, right? And so people have to be thoughtful of that, but critical thinking is not common sense. And so that's something that we, as leaders, I think you got to try to embed. But I'm also positive by nature. That's another thing. People are like, well, how are you in this role and doing this? Some of it is luck. I don't know. It's innate stuff, right? I genuinely like people, and I grew up with a ton of appreciation. I appreciate everything that I have. Like, I do not exaggerate. I wake up every morning and I appreciate that Bill is next to me. I go to bed every night and I appreciate that our 4 guys are healthy and where they're supposed to be at night, right? Like, I appreciate that the company has all these great people working for it. Our last employee survey was phenomenal. We have 200 people at CoAction in social services, helping people with crisis. How the heck do you have a phenomenal, employee survey, right?
You'd almost, the logic side of your brain might say, is there anyone that's positive there? Like with what you have to do, that could be 0.
Yeah.
And when you're saying, no, it's most of us.
Like,
God dang.
It's hard work, right?
Yeah.
But you don't dismiss that piece of it. People are doing hard work every day, and you're reassuring them, I think, to do that. Once in a while, it's all human nature. You sit back and you're like, man, this is hard stuff, right? Or, you have once in a while these days, but I think for us are also really infrequent, where you just have like, but when you do, you've got your people. You got to have your people around you. That's when like, I need a vacation, and we vacation.
Yeah.
So we work a lot, but we also, have blessings that, we get, or I get 4 weeks a year of vacation, and I need it. And at least 2 of them, I actually don't work. So, it's like, there's some really great moments where we explore the world, check out, remind ourselves that the world is a much bigger place than ourselves, our family, our work. It's much bigger than that. And so for us, traveling is really, really important.
What does traveling teach you?
Oh my gosh. we love travel and travel, whether it's like vacation travel or just general travel, because we've just visited so many great spots, and you can compare and contrast who we are and what it's like around here. But I always realize how great it is around here, and such a phenomenal community and region that we have. So that's a big thing, just kind of looking at that, because we always like, man, this is kind of a nice place, but we want to move here, and there's so many reasons not to, and
Yeah.
we recognize that. But like she said, we take our vacations because we work so much extra time, and we really work hard when we're working, that we have to take that time off. Usually it's about 1 week we don't work, honestly, on vacations. And usually I even tell the whole team, this is my checkout vacation. This is the week. This is the one. Like, you will not hear from me.
Yep.
Unless there's something really bad happening, reach out. But most of the time, we're just checking a few things. Might respond to a few things. We try to take any projects with us, but we're not totally disengaged. I think that's important. But when we go to Mexico, Cancun, we love going down there. You just see the different lifestyle they have, and you realize how fortunate we are also. Even in the nice areas, it's just, we have so much to offer, in the United States, in our community, and where we are in Indiana. We're very grateful. I'm very grateful for that. And just, I think we're very fortunate to have what we have. So again, no reason to stay positive, with all the persons, when you hear negative talk, or when your employees are like, oh gosh, there's all this stuff going on in life. It's like, let's ground where we are right now and recognize what's happening around you and how it's really not that bad. Or read the news, not this news, right? Obviously, but read the other news that's like the negative news. It should be all about the bad life. News is what they probably should be saying, because it's so skewed. Either way, it doesn't matter how it is. It's just like, let's just put the negative spin on there. And even this morning, I read something. I can't remember exactly how it was, but they used the word despite, and I'm just like, why did you add, this happened despite this? I'm like, why? The fact was here, and then you're like, let me put my editorial in here. And so when we do messaging, I do a lot of messaging to staff when things are happening and they're all thinking about things. I'm like, let's just think about what's actually happening here. Get away from all the politics of it and focus there. So I think getting a little bit more of a worldly view helps us to recognize what's coming at us and how it's being said. Look at some of the overseas news and recognize what we don't know is happening around the world. And I think that's helpful as well.
Yeah, I view it as we're in a climate, not just, recently, but increasingly over, let's say, the last 4, 5, 10 years, where you have an abundance of information at your fingertips, but it's more important than ever that you can get that distilled down into some kind of rational view. And it's very hard, as you just said, if you're not looking at, okay, what are the sources of information? What's the basis of that logic? What is your fear predicated upon? And then saying, okay, how much of that is real?
Yeah.
And from my standpoint, again, I obviously only focus on the positive side. I read everything critical of any kind you could possibly imagine. I read it all across the spectrum, but then you do apply critical thinking and just say, okay, well, if this and this are both said, which one's likely to be true? Okay, well, this one has got this weak component of the argument, and this one, it doesn't have any weakness. Okay, so that one is probably likely to be true. And it's really not what you feel at all. It's literally just what the facts are.
I put
and
that
that's hard to do.
Too. Yeah, my own writing, I take out a lot of adjectives out. I'll have something in there. I'm like, that seems like I'm just adding a little flavor here, which I know it's like probably like nicer reading, but at the same time, I'm like, I'm putting a little skew in it when I say, it's great or it's beautiful or
awesome.
It's just like it's
spectacular or whatever.
It's all good words, right? But at the same time, I happen to not to use those words, because then I think they just look like I'm skewing what I'm trying to say. Which I love getting the facts out, and my emails can be long. My staff know this. I'm very explanatory.
Actually, ChatGPT should give him some cred, because ChatGPT writes like Bill. So Bill would write these beautiful pieces, and I'd read them, especially the stuff if he was like, it was like a holiday message or just something to rally, and he would show, I would ask, and I'd read these things, and they're so perfect. They're so well done. Like, they just captured everything in this incredible way. It was like fact and balancing, like compassion. It was just really good. And then, years later, ChatGPT comes out, and now I'm like, I don't need your influence. I got this. No.
The worst thing about ChatGPT.
So this is a story. You've been replaced by ChatGPT.
I've been replaced specifically. And so I use it a lot, nowadays, especially like for the technical writing and all that. I think it's great because I don't have to put a lot of effort, like a new policy done, right? I can write myself for personal stuff. But one of the telltale signs of ChatGPT, one of the newer ones, is like using the M dashes.
Yeah.
Which I always use M dashes, always. Go back in all my writings well before ChatGPT was a thing. And now I'm like, I can't use them anymore because everyone's like, oh, he uses ChatGPT. I'm like, no, I didn't. This is my own writing.
Yeah. I was M dashes before ChatGPT was M dashes.
So that's a little frustrating. I finally figured out how to use it in Microsoft Word, how to make an M dash, right? And so now they use it. So now I'm like, no, I'm stuck. So now I have to stop using them, and I use parentheses and things.
Well, thank you both for sharing lessons. Thanks to both of you for inspiring your organizations and for the impact that your organizations have. And from my standpoint, thanks also for being great representative of what an engaged couple can do as a power component, because I really do believe who you have beside you is your potential superpower. And sounds like, you're bringing calm, you're bringing critical thinking, you're both bringing positive energy, a little bit different mindset, and ultimately you're making a lot of people better off.
Well, thank you. Really appreciate the time, for sure. And obviously the time to showcase my love for my wife. So
you've only said that once. I thought we were shooting for 7 times was the goal.